He smiled as I was dying. I smiled when I opened my eyes. Rain stitched silver lines across the windshield, and the wipers worked, like a metronome counting down to something I didn't want to name. The bridge was a ribbon of wet light, headlights smeared into golden ghosts. Chae Min's hand was light on the wheel, fingers relaxed, his mouth curved in that lazy, practiced smile. "I'll take care of everything," he said. Trust me." I did. That was the cruel part. Trust looks a lot like blindness when you only discover it at the edge. The car slid, not a dramatic scream of tires, just a patient, almost polite drift toward the railing. Time peeled open like an orange. In the rearview mirror I caught my own face, tired, softened by love, and a dozen small compromises, and just beyond it, his smile widening. Not fear, not shock, satisfaction, like a problem he'd solved. Shh. I didn't finish his name. Metal kissed metal. The railing gave with a shrug. The world tilted into rain and sky and a valley of city lights. Everything slowed to a hush. Even my heartbeat seemed to stand on its tiptoes to watch. And in that slow falling, there was a thought. So this is what betrayal looks like from the inside. Neat. Painless, almost. A clean, elegant end to a long, messy lie. Water rushed up like an open door. Dark. Silence. A breath I was sure I didn't take. And I was sitting upright in a narrow bed, lungs dragging in thin, dusty air that smelled like instant noodles, cheap detergent, and someone else's cologne from 2 tenants ago. I stared at the ceiling. The crack above me looked like a lightning bolt. I knew that crack. I knew the way the cheap curtains stuck to the window when it rained. I knew the scrape of the wooden ladder on the bunk bed, and the tiny nail where I hung my keys back when I lost them twice a week. I knew this room. "No," I whispered. The word felt ridiculous. "You have got to be kidding me." My feet hit the cold floor. My toes remembered the dent where the floorboard always dipped. I crossed to the tiny desk and stared at the calendar pinned above it. June 2017. The numbers were circled in blue pen, deadlines from a life I hadn't messed up yet. My hands shook. I pressed them to the desk and the wood creaked like an old friend. The clock blinked 6:12 p.m., its red digits smug. From outside came the muffled bark of a neighbor's dog and the slosh of someone dragging a mop down the hallway. I stumbled to the mirror by the door. The glass was scarred and yellowed at the edges, but it did its rude job anyway. A girl with black hair without the expensive highlights I'd worn last year, clear skin not yet ruined by too many late nights, eyes ringed more by worry than by makeup. 23, not 28. Not the woman who had sat in a car and watched her lover smile as the world tipped. My mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then I laughed. It wasn't pretty. It came out breathless and a little broken, like hiccups that had given up on dignity. "Okay," I told the mirror, because it seemed to be listening. "Fine. Round 2. My heartbeat pounded in my palms when I pressed them to my cheeks. Anger heat flashed under my skin, quick and cleansing. I remembered the way his voice had wrapped around "trust me" like silk. I remembered the gentle tilt of his head when he apologized for being late, for forgetting, for lying. I remembered believing him, because believing was a habit I'd confused with kindness. "Not this time," I said. "This time I don't break for anyone." The mirror's reflection wavered, like something moved behind me. A shadow crossed the glass, too tall for me, too thin for the closet door, and for a second the air turned cold enough to bead my breath. I spun around. The room was empty. Just the unmade bed, the laundry basket judging me from the corner, my dying spider plant listing toward the window like a drunk. When I looked back, the shadow was gone. Stress, I told myself, a hangover from drowning, a hallucination with good timing. I checked my phone. The screen was scratched and old. The model I'd traded up for years ago didn't exist yet. Notifications, a class group chat complaining about the professor, a missed call. From my mother, 3 marketing emails promising to change my life in 5 steps. Nothing from Chae Min, of course. We hadn't met yet, not like that. A laugh bubbled up again, smaller this time, almost bright. I could fix things. Not everything. Life didn't work like a puzzle you solved once and framed on your wall. But enough. Enough to make my choices louder than what had been chosen for me. My hands moved without asking permission. I opened the desk drawer, pulled out my old notebook, the one with the peeling, fox sticker on the cover, and flipped through lists I'd written in a different timeline, internships to apply for, shirts I wanted to buy when I had money, a recipe for a dish I'd never cooked because Chae Min hated garlic. On the last page, a doodle of a crown and a sticky note to myself, "Stop apologizing to everyone." "Past me," I said, softer. "We're going to try that again." I sat. The chair wobbled like it was testing me. I made a new list, pen scratching fast. 2. Don't take the first offer just because it's kind. 3. Call Yunhi. No, don't tell her everything. Not yet. 4. Eat real food. 5. Choose work, that's mine. My skin prickled. I looked up. The mirror had fogged at the corners. A trick it sometimes did when the weather was gross, except the window was cracked open, and the air draining in was cool. A faint, almost playful ripple crossed the glass again, as if the shadow was practicing a wave. "Cute," I told it. "You can haunt someone richer." The humor helped. It always had. I wasn't fearless. I could feel fear twitching under my ribs, a nervous animal, pacing. But if bravery was a performance, I could fake it until I believed it. I'd faked a lot harder things for less important reasons. I stood. The bridge was still in my bones, the fall was still echoing somewhere under my sternum, a hollow note I could tap with a finger. But here, in this hideous little room, with my life rewound and my dignity only slightly dented, I could hear something else too, the thin, persistent thread of a second chance. I touched the calendar. The day felt oversized, like a doorframe I could expand to fit a better version of myself through. I felt very awake. I felt unkind to my old habits. I felt like I wanted noodles, then a plan, then a nap, in that exact order. "Okay," I told the girl in the mirror. "You get to want things again." She lifted her chin, my chin, and nodded. Outside, a siren wailed and fell away. I pulled on a sweater, fished a crumpled bill from my pocket, and opened the door. It squeaked the same old squeak. The hallway smelled like fried garlic and detergent. Not bad omens, in my experience. I paused. The shadow in the mirror stretched like a yawn, then tightened back to my silhouette. I could have sworn it smirked. Later, I said to whatever was listening, "I've got a life to rewrite." And I stepped into 2017 like it owed me interest. The next morning, the sunlight looked wrong. Too sharp, too cheerful for someone who had recently drowned, woken up, 5 years younger, and made a promise to ruin fate's sense of humor. I stared at my closet. It was a sad, apologetic thing, full of jeans with thinning knees and t-shirts that used to be white. My reflection in the mirror looked like she owned exactly one lipstick and had forgotten where it was. "Not again," I muttered. In the last timeline, I'd been agreeable. Soft edges, easy to push. The kind of girl who dressed in pale sweaters because someone once told her they were sweet on her. The kind of girl who said it's fine when it wasn't. This time? No. I yanked out the darkest pair of jeans I had, the boots I'd worn only twice because they were too loud on tiled floors, and the jacket my mother said made me look unfeminine. Perfect. By noon, I was stomping through the university district like someone who ate rules for lunch. My phone buzzed. "Where are you?" Yunhi's voice crackled through. "Cafe on 7th, I said. "Come if you want. I'm making life choices." She showed up 10 minutes later, hair in a messy bun, eyeliner sharp enough to slice open the day. "You look," she said, sliding into the seat across from me, "like you lost a bet with a biker gang." "Thank you," I said. She squinted. "What's going on with you? Yesterday you were crying over your GPA. Today you look like you're about to join a rebellion. I stirred my coffee. I decided, I hate my life plan. Which part? All of it. Yunhi leaned back. You're scaring me. You sound, I don't know. Different. Good. Out loud, I said. I realized I've been living like the side character in my own story. I want the main role. She blinked. Main role in what? A drama? Something like that. I didn't tell her the truth. That I had already lived this life once. Badly. Like a sloppy rehearsal. That I had made every choice with my heart half asleep, and it had cost me everything. That I had trusted the wrong man until the moment water filled my lungs. She wouldn't have believed me anyway. Instead, I pulled out my laptop and turned it toward her. Look. The screen glowed with the career page of Lim Soft. Yunhi tilted her head. That creepy company with the weird contracts? Not creepy. Mysterious. Same thing. I grinned. They pay well. And their boss? She lowered her voice. They say nobody's seen him in daylight. Ever. Like he's allergic to the sun or something. Maybe he just hates people, I said. They also say he fires anyone who lies to him. Good, I said. I'm terrible at lying. She gave me a look. You? Lying? You used to fake stomachaches to get out of gym class. Strategic survival tactics. Yunhi stirred her iced latte, eyes narrowing. I don't get it. Why them? You could work anywhere. Something normal. Normal had killed me last time. I shrugged. I want change. The word tasted small compared to what I meant. I wanted a new spine, a new script, a job where I wasn't the girl waiting in the lobby for someone else to decide my future. I clicked apply before I could lose my nerve. The form vanished, replaced by a curt message. Thank you for your interest. Our team will contact you if your profile matches our needs. Yunhi watched me like I'd just set fire to my degree. Do you even know what they do? Software, I said. That's vague. So am I. She laughed, despite herself. You're insane. But this is entertaining, like watching a quiet kid suddenly flip a table. That's the energy I'm going for, I said. We left the cafe, the sun slipping lower, the streets buzzing with students and delivery scooters. My boots thumped against the pavement like they were glad to be out of retirement. Across from the bus stop, Lim Soft towered over the block. Its windows were a wall of black glass, reflecting the city like it wanted nothing to do with it. No logo, no cheerful lobby plants, just a dark mouth of an entrance where people in suits walked in and came out looking changed. Rumors clung to the place like ivy. That deals were signed in blood. That employees vanished from old lives like erased chalk. That the man in charge could read your intentions before you spoke. Staring up at it, I felt the hair on my arms rise. In my last life, I'd taken the safe path. The comfortable internship. The boyfriend with the easy smile. The future that looked fine on paper until it drowned me. This time I wanted sharp edges. I wanted the kind of place people whispered about. Yunhi followed my gaze. If you get murdered in there, I'm telling your mother you had it coming. Fair? I said. The doors slid open for a man in a gray suit. He didn't look cursed. Just tired, like he'd signed something heavy. I pulled my jacket tighter, heart thudding once in my ribs. New life, I reminded myself. New rules. And somewhere behind all that black glass, a man I hadn't met yet was about to change everything. The receptionist had left me in a glass-walled room that was too quiet, too polished. Even the plants looked like they'd been threatened into standing perfectly still. My resume sat on the table, a single sheet of paper that suddenly felt underwhelming compared to the rumors wrapping this place like smoke. The clock on the wall ticked. Loudly, mockingly. I told myself I wasn't nervous. My boot was lying for me, tapping out Morse code on the floor. Then the door opened. He didn't hurry. He didn't need to. Tall, dark hair falling just enough out of place to look deliberate. A charcoal suit, black tie, cufflinks that caught the light like tiny blades. And eyes, God, those eyes. sharp as broken glass, but glinting with something warmer. Humor? Danger? Both? Miss Kang, he said, voice smooth enough to pour over ice. I stood. Mr. Lim. The corner of his mouth tugged upward. Not a full smile, more like he was privately amused about something I hadn't said yet. He sat across from me, one fluid motion, the kind of grace that looked expensive. The clock kept ticking until he glanced at it, and then it stopped. Just one missed beat, one frozen second. Maybe I imagined it. He leaned back, studying me like I was a painting he wasn't sure was authentic. What does a second chance mean to you, Miss Kang? Not tell me about yourself. Not, why should we hire you? Straight to philosophy like we were in a late-night dorm debate. I folded my hands so he wouldn't see them tighten. It means not wasting time on stupid things, I said. His eyebrow lifted. Such as jobs that treat you like wallpaper, I said. People who smile too much. Regretting things before they're even over. He watched me with that unreadable look. The one people use when they're weighing you on a scale only they can see. Interesting, he said finally. I shrugged. You asked. He glanced down at my resume, though I had the weirdest feeling he already knew everything on it. You have no background in software. You have no idea what I'm capable of, I said before I could stop myself. His mouth twitched, like the words amused him. Like he heard threats for breakfast and ordered seconds. Confidence, he murmured. I like that. The clock ticked again, but slower, as if time itself leaned in to listen. His questions didn't get less strange. What do you fear most? Snakes, I said. And mediocre coffee. What do you want? A life that doesn't feel like a draft version? I said, surprising myself with the honesty. His gaze sharpened, like I'd said something more important than I realized. And what would you trade for it? He asked softly. The air thinned. My pulse stuttered. I made myself smirk. That depends. Do you take coupons? For a second, just one, his smile cracked through, real and quick, like sunlight between storm clouds. Clever, he said. The shadows along the walls stretched when he did, like the light bent closer to hear him. Maybe the air conditioner had kicked on. Maybe I was losing it. I leaned back, copying his calm even though my heart was still tripping over itself. Is this where you ask about my greatest weakness? No, he said, watching me like the question bored him. I already know it. Chills skated down my arms. Do tell. Not yet, he said. Great, cryptic, and good-looking. My favorite flavor of mistake. He flipped my resume shut like he was closing a story with a dull ending. We'll start Monday. I blinked. That's it? That's it. He stood, taller than seemed necessary, like the ceiling should have been higher for him. The details will be sent to your email. I stared. Don't you want references? Background checks? At least a blood sample? Unnecessary. He straightened his cufflinks. I already know how this ends. The room felt tilted. Do you often hire people you've known for 5 minutes? No, he said, heading for the door. Only the interesting ones. The clock jumped back to its regular rhythm as soon as he left. I sat there with my heart beating like it had somewhere to be, wondering what exactly I'd just signed up for, and why part of me already liked it. On my second day, I learned 3 things about Lim Soft. 1. The coffee was criminally strong. 2. The secretary, Ms. Jin, had the emotional range of a granite wall. 3. The boss didn't like curtains open. The first 2 I could live with. The third was starting to bother me. Sunlight only came into the building in brief, reluctant slants before it hit the blackout glass and gave up. It made the whole place feel like a waiting room between worlds. Miss Jin handed me a stack of non-disclosure forms without looking up from her computer. Sign these. Her tone suggested I might spontaneously combust if I asked questions. I signed anyway, my handwriting wobblier than I wanted it to be. When I came back from the break room with my 3rd cup of death roast, Coffee, the door to the main conference room was cracked open. I didn't mean to stop. I told myself I was just adjusting my jacket, that I wasn't the kind of person who peeked into private meetings like a nosy intern in a bad TV drama. But then I heard the voice. "You understand the terms," Ray Lim said, calm and sharp as a paper cut. A man sat across from him, mid-40s, suit that didn't quite fit. Hands clenched on the table like they wanted to leave before he did. "I do," the man said hoarsely. "I accept." My angle gave me only a slice of the room, the table, the man's white knuckles, the sleek fountain pen Ray slid across to him. "Sign," Ray said. The man did. Ink on paper. Simple as paying a bill. Then it happened. The tattoo on the man's forearm, a jagged black mark like a spiky crown, shivered. That's the only word for it. Shivered. Then it bled light, white and cold, before peeling off his skin like smoke dissolving in water. I swallowed hard enough to hurt. The man sagged back, staring at his now bare arm, and laughed once, a small broken thing, before standing on unsteady legs. "It's done," Ray said, not unkind, but with a finality that made the air feel heavier. The man nodded, clutched the contract like a life raft, and left. I realized my hand was still on the doorframe. "Interesting HR department we have," I said before I could shut my mouth. Ray didn't look surprised to see me. Of course he didn't. "Curious?" he asked, tone unreadable. I shrugged like my pulse wasn't still climbing walls. "Little bit." His eyes flicked toward the hall behind me. "Miss Jin," he called, voice smooth as glass. She appeared instantly, like she'd been waiting for him to summon her out of thin air. "Yes, sir." "Please explain our confidentiality policies to Miss Kang." Ms. Jin's expression didn't change. I wasn't sure it could. "Already signed," she said. Ray's gaze returned to me. Amused, faintly, like I was a cat pretending I hadn't knocked something off the counter. "Then she can stay," he said. "Stay for what?" My mouth opened, but he was already gathering the papers, sliding them into a folder with precise, almost ritualistic movements. "What was that?" I asked finally. "Paperwork," he said. "Paperwork doesn't usually glow." He smiled, the smallest curve of his mouth. "Depends where you work." Ms. Jin gave me a look that suggested I should quit while my soul was intact. Ray stood, the room shrinking around him in that way he had. "Miss Kang," he said. "Some things you'll learn with time. Others you won't." "Comforting," I muttered. He didn't deny it. The client was gone, the folder sealed, the pen capped and set exactly parallel to the edge of the table. Ordinary things, arranged with unsettling neatness. Ray glanced at me once more before leaving the room. "Welcome to Lim Soft," he said, like the job description now included witness to whatever that was. And then he was gone, leaving the air too quiet, like even the walls were waiting for an explanation that didn't come. Miss Jin collected the signed forms from my hand without looking at me. "If you have questions," she said flatly. "Don't." "Right," I said. "Got it." "Love the communication style here." Her eyes finally met mine. "You'll get used to it." I wasn't sure I wanted to. The first time I saw Chae Min again, I was carrying coffee back to my desk and nearly dropped it on my boots. "Luna," he said, like the name tasted sweet to him. Like nothing had happened. It had been weeks since the fall that killed me in one life, and hadn't happened yet in this one. Weeks since I swore to rewrite everything. Yet here he was, same careful smile, same sharp jawline, same eyes pretending softness they didn't have. "Let's start over," he said. I blinked at him. "Over?" My voice came out flat as the coffee cooling in my cup. "I'm writing new rules now. They don't include you." His smile faltered, then returned like it had been rehearsed. "You don't mean that. We were good together." Good. The word scraped like sandpaper. I remembered water swallowing the car, the glint of streetlights on the river, the way his hand never reached for mine. I set the coffee down carefully, so I wouldn't throw it at him. "Whatever version of me you knew before." "She's dead." He flinched, just a flicker, but I saw it. I didn't owe him more words, but he followed me out to the hall anyway. "Look," he said, dropping his voice. "I heard about this place, about Lim Soft, about the man running it." My steps slowed. "Ray." His smile sharpened. "They say he can make things happen. Give people what they want." "Sounds like gossip," I said. "Sounds like opportunity." His eyes glittered like they always did when money was involved. And there it was. The thing I hadn't noticed the first time around. The hunger under his charm. The part of him that looked at doors only to wonder what they were worth. "I don't know what you think this is," I said. "But stay out of it." He chuckled. "Why?" "Afraid he'll like me better?" "Afraid he'll burn you to ash before you finish your pitch," I thought. Out loud I said, "You wouldn't survive 5 minutes in his office." "Then maybe you can introduce us." I turned on him so fast he stopped walking. "No," I said. Simple. Final. He studied me like I was a puzzle that had changed its picture halfway through. "You're different," he said finally. "Good," I said. "Means I'm learning." I left him in the hall with his fake smile and his 2 bright eyes, and my hands shook only a little as I carried my coffee back to my desk. That evening, I met Yunhi at the little cafe near campus, the one with cracked leather chairs and a menu that hadn't changed since we were freshmen. She spotted my face before I said a word. "Oh no," she said. "He's back, isn't he?" "Like a bad pop song," I muttered, dropping into the seat across from her. She wrinkled her nose. What did he want? To start over? Like hitting undo on a whole human life? Yunhi snorted. "Please tell me you said no." I said no. Good. Because I've heard things about him. I looked up. "What things?" She stirred her tea, eyes on the swirling surface. "He's been running with a different crowd lately. Guys with money, but the kind that makes trouble, not solutions. He isn't the same, Luna. More secrets, more ambition." That didn't surprise me. In my first life, I'd only ever seen the polished side of him. The smiles, the easy compliments, the dinners he never paid for because somehow I always did. Maybe I hadn't wanted to see the rest. "Be careful," Yunhi said softly. I thought of the way his eyes had lit up when he said Ray's name, like someone seeing a locked door and wanting the key, no matter the cost. "I'm not the one who needs warning," I said. Back at Lim Soft the next day, the halls hummed with the usual quiet, tension. Keyboards clicking, doors opening and closing like clockwork. I caught sight of Ray once, passing through the lobby. He nodded at me, just once. The kind of acknowledgement that carried weight even in its brevity. I wondered what he'd say if I told him about Chae Min sniffing around his company like a fox at the edge of a campfire. Probably, or maybe he'd smile that calm, terrifying smile and let the fire speak for him. Either way, one thing was clear, Chae Min wasn't done. And for the first time, neither was I. I cornered him on a Thursday. Not literally, nobody with a survival instinct corners Ray Lim, but enough to make him pause on his way through the lobby, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a folder that probably contained the fate of someone's soul. "Do you ever answer questions directly?" I asked. "Or is it all riddles and cryptic stares with you?" He didn't slow. "Depends on the question." "I'm asking about you." That earned me a glance. Quick, sharp, like a blade that decided not to cut. Yet, we ended up in his office. I didn't entirely remember how. Maybe I followed him. Maybe he let me. The place smelled like leather and rain, shadows clinging to corners even though the lights were on. He set the folder down, leaned against the desk and folded his arms. "Go ahead, Miss Kang. Ask." I stayed standing because sitting felt like surrender. "Where did you come from?" He smirked. "Geographically or metaphysically? Whichever one explains why you hire people after 5-minute interviews and collect glowing signatures like baseball cards." He studied me for a long moment, as if deciding how much truth I could survive. "I signed something once," he said finally. "A long time ago." I waited. And it changed things. That was it. No details, no dates. Just that smooth, infuriating calm. Let me guess, I said. The devil at the crossroads? Midnight bargain under a blood moon? Please, he said dryly. I have better taste than crossroads. Right. Probably a luxury hotel then. His mouth twitched. You're not entirely wrong. I crossed my arms, mirroring him. So now you're... what? Collecting contracts to pay off your own? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the window. The city reflected back at us in the dark glass. Two silhouettes, one amused, one trying not to be curious and failing. When people want something badly enough, he said softly, they'll sign anything. Power, love, revenge, doesn't matter. They all think they understand the cost. And they don't? He turned, leaning one shoulder against the glass. They never do. The air felt heavier, like the room itself was holding its breath. So what was your cost? I asked before I could stop myself. For a moment, just one, something in his face shifted. Not much. A flicker. A crack in the ice. Too high, he said finally. Then the smile returned, sharp and cold. But the view afterward was worth it. I rolled my eyes because anything else felt too dangerous. Do you practice being mysterious, or does it come naturally? Both, he said. Keeps things interesting. I wanted to shake him. Or maybe kiss him. Possibly both. Instead, I leaned against the opposite wall, arms still crossed. You ever regret it, whatever you signed? His gaze locked on mine, steady enough to pin me in place. Regret is useless. Deals don't care about feelings. That sounds like something a villain would say, right before the tragic backstory flashback. His smile deepened, slow and deliberate. Maybe I'm the villain. Too stylish for a villain, I said before I could help myself. That earned me a low chuckle. Flattery, Miss Kang? Observation, I said quickly. But my pulse was not cooperating with the whole cool and detached act. He pushed off the window, closing the distance between us just enough to be distracting. Careful, he said softly. Curiosity comes with its own price. I swallowed. Is that a threat? A promise. The silence stretched, electric and thin. The city lights painted lines across his suit, across his hands, across the faint scar at his wrist I hadn't noticed before. Was that from your deal? I asked, nodding at the scar. He glanced down like he'd forgotten it existed. Old story. Everything about you is an old story. Some stories, he said, voice dropping, are better told slowly. I hated that my heart tripped over itself at the sound of his voice. Hated it more when he caught the hesitation in my eyes and let his smile turn knowing. You enjoy being irritating, don't you? I muttered. Immensely, he said. Especially with you. I grabbed my bag before the conversation got any more complicated. One day, I said, heading for the door, you're going to answer a question without turning it into a riddle. Unlikely, he said behind me, laughter warm and cold at once. I didn't look back, mostly because I wasn't sure what he'd see on my face if I did. Chae Min was waiting for me outside Lim Soft 3 days later, leaning against a street lamp like he owned the pavement. Luna, he said warmly, like the syllables were still his to use. I considered walking past him, right into traffic if necessary. Instead, I stopped. Slowly. What do you want? To talk. He pushed off the lamp, all charm and clean lines. Over dinner? I'm busy, I said flatly. Too busy for old friends? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Too busy for ghosts, I said, brushing by him. But he followed. Of course he followed. Listen, he said, voice dropping. I know about Lim Soft, about Ray Lim. People talk, Luna, about the contracts, about the power. My steps faltered for half a second. He caught it. You work for him, he said softly. That means you have access. I turned then, hard enough to make him stop short. Access to what? To whatever it is he's hiding, Whatever makes people whisper his name like he's not entirely. He trailed off, eyes glinting. Human. I almost laughed. Almost. You think you can steal from him? I think, Chae Min said smoothly, that you can help me. And there it was. The thing under the charm, sharp and greedy and familiar. I remembered drowning. The streetlights flickering on water. His smile. No, I said. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. He has something, Luna. Power, magic. I don't care what you call it. I want it. And you, he tilted his head, smile softening like he was doing me a favor. You can bring it to me. I stared at him. You've lost your mind. Or, he said lightly, I finally know what I want. He left after that, vanishing into the crowd. But the words stuck like splinters. 2 nights later, my phone buzzed. A message from Chae Min. Meet me. 1 conversation. That's all I'm asking. I should have ignored it. I didn't. The cafe was nearly empty when I arrived. Rain slid down the windows in silver lines. Chae Min sat near the back, looking like temptation dressed in expensive regret. Thank you for coming, he said smoothly. Make it quick, I said, sitting. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. I know where he keeps them. I frowned. Keeps what? The contracts. The source. Whatever ties him to all of this. You're insane, I said. He smiled. Maybe. But if I had it, I could end him. Take everything he has. My stomach twisted. You want me to help you steal magic from someone who makes reality bend when he walks into a room? You're close to him, Chae Min said. He trusts you. That's your first mistake, I muttered. But he kept talking, weaving plans like spiderwebs. How I could slip into Ray's office. How there was something hidden there. How he only needed 1 chance. I stood before he finished. Find another pawn, Chae Min. I quit playing your games 5 years ago. His smile didn't slip. It's not a game, Luna. Then it's suicide, I said, walking out into the rain. The trap sprang 2 days later. I stayed late at the office, finishing paperwork Miss Jin had left in neat, ominous stacks. The building was nearly empty, lights humming softly. That's when I heard it. A muffled sound from Ray's office. A thud. I knocked once. Mr. Lim? No answer. The door was ajar. I pushed it open, and the air went wrong. Chae Min stood by the desk, a folder in his hands glowing faintly, like the paper itself was alive. Luna, he said, smiling like we'd run into each other at a party. Perfect timing. What are you doing? Taking control, he said simply. Of him. Of everything. The glow spread across the floor, lines of light forming symbols I didn't recognize. The air thickened, heavy and sharp. Put it back, I said. He laughed. You don't even know what this is, do you? Neither do you, I snapped. But it was too late. The symbols flared white-hot, and then the light shattered. That's the only word for it. Shattered. The room convulsed. Wind roared out of nowhere, papers whipping like frightened birds. The desk cracked straight down the middle. And then Ray was there. One moment, he wasn't. The next, he stood in the doorway, eyes burning like someone had lit the night behind them. Out, he said to Chae Min. 1 word, low and final. Chae Min smiled, but it wavered. I have what I need. You have nothing, Ray said, and the wind died like it had been cut off with a knife. The symbols on the floor burned out. The glow in the folder went dark. Chae Min paled. Ray stepped closer, slow and precise. Leave. Before I decide what you're worth. For once, Chae Min didn't argue. He slipped past me and vanished into the hall, his charm trailing behind him like smoke after fire. The office fell silent. The broken desk, the scorched floor, the folder lying dead and harmless. Ray turned to me then. His eyes were still too bright. You, he said softly, have no idea what you almost got pulled into. I didn't help him. That doesn't matter. His voice cracked like thunder under calm words. This isn't a game, Miss Kang. It never was. Something in my chest tightened. What was it then? Back then? Before this job? Before everything? He studied me for a long moment. The storm in his eyes eased, fraction by fraction. In another life, he said quietly, I tried to save you. The room tilted. Save me? His jaw tightened. Didn't make it in time. The rain outside hammered the windows. I couldn't find words. He looked away first, gathering the dead folder from the floor. Go home, Miss Kang. And just like that, the conversation was over. But the echo of it followed me out into the night, trailing me like unfinished business. The morning after the storm in Ray's office, the city looked rinsed and raw. I took the long way to work, boots loud on the pavement, coffee hotter than my nerves. When I stepped into Lim Soft, Ms. Jin was waiting in the lobby like a verdict. Conference room, she said, and started walking. Granite had learned to move. Inside, glass, shadows, a long table, and the sound of a clock ticking as if it were being paid to. Ray stood at the far end, immaculate, unreadable. Two men I didn't recognize flanked the wall, sharp suits and sharper eyes. And in the nearest chair, like a stain someone forgot to scrub out, sat Chae Min. He smiled when he saw me. Of course he did. Luna. I didn't answer. I sat. Ray's gaze slid to me for a fraction of a second. Acknowledgement, inventory, heat I pretended not to notice, then back to the room. We'll be brief. Please, said Chae Min. All silk. No need for drama. I simply came to return a file that was accidentally misplaced. The clock ticked. Ray set a folder on the table and opened it. Inside were photographs, emails, transaction records, names and numbers stapled into a map of someone's greed. Not just last night. Years. Investments that were a little too lucky. Partners who ended up a little too empty. A pattern you only saw if you were standing too high or too hurt to look away. Ray's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Opportunists often confuse open doors with permission. I did nothing illegal, said Chae Min lightly. Ambition isn't a crime. Neither is gravity, Ray said. But it still pulls. One of the suited men spoke for the first time, neutral and professional. Mr. Chae, you leveraged insider information and falsified documents. You coerced signatures. Allegedly, said Chae Min. And who are you exactly? People who will be sharing this with others who care, Ray said. Consider this. Daylight. If Ray's power was a storm, daylight was the aftermath. Everything small and ugly suddenly visible. The room felt brighter without getting lighter. You can't prove, began Chae Min, then stopped, throat working. He swallowed, blinked, tried again. I didn't mean. It was subtle at first, a pressure in the air, a narrowing of options. I felt it on my skin, like walking into a room where someone had just told the truth, and it hadn't yet finished echoing. The symbols Ray had burned out on the floor last night weren't here, but something else was, a refusal written into the day itself. The kind of magic that didn't glow, it clarified. Try again, Ray said softly. Without the lies. Color drained from Chae Min's face. I wanted what he had, he said. The words came like fish hooked from a dark lake. Unwanted, inevitable. Power, access. I thought. His jaw twitched. I thought I could take it. Silence swallowed the room. The clock ticked like it was applauding. One of the men closed his folder. We're done. He and his partner left, their exit a clean cut. Chae Min's charm deflated. He looked smaller, younger, a boy who had played grown-up until the cuffs bit his wrists. He turned to me like I might still be a soft place to land. Luna. Tell him. No, I said. The word hit him harder than anything in the folder. Ray closed the file with 2 fingers. You mistook her for a pawn, he said. She isn't. For a heartbeat, rage flared across Chae Min's face. Pure, ugly, honest. Then it shuddered. He stood, straightened his jacket, and aimed a smile at me that had once worked on a weaker version of me. "You'll regret this." "I already did," I said. "In another life." He left without slamming the door. The quiet afterward was louder. Ms. Jin gathered the paperwork, her expression unchanged, but when she looked at me, I caught, God help me, a molecule of approval. "Please finish your onboarding modules by end of day," she said, and left too. We were alone, Ray and I. The table between us looked like a thin excuse. "Thank you," I said. It came out awkward, too many feelings trying to fit through a small doorway. "For what?" His tone was cool, his eyes were not. "For daylight," I said. "And for last night," his jaw shifted. "You shouldn't have been there." "Neither should he," I said. "But I was. And you were." A breath. The clock stuttered. One missed beat, like it remembered us. "I told you," he said quietly. "This isn't a game." "And yet here we are," I said, "with scores and rules and a referee who hates curtains." That earned me the barest curve of his mouth. He came closer, stopping on my side of the table, close enough to turn oxygen into a memory. "In another life," I said, "because I needed the shape of the truth in my mouth, you tried to save me." He didn't look away. "I was late. I died." "Yes." The honesty sat between us, heavy and bright. "Why?" I asked. "Why try?" A humorless exhale. "Because your name wouldn't leave my ledger." "Your ledger?" "It listens," he said. "Not to prayers, to choices, to the moment a person decides to want something badly enough to become someone else to get it." His gaze felt like a hand under my chin. "You chose a second chance. It lit you up like a lighthouse." "I didn't ask," I murmured, and heard the old, tired defense in my own voice. "You didn't have to," he said. "You already were." We stood in the brightness of that. And then the brightness asked for a shape. Ray reached into his inside pocket and pulled out a single sheet of paper. He set it on the table between us like a waiter serving something that might ruin me. "No magic," he said. "A contract, if you want to call it that. Terms I can live by." I glanced down. It wasn't legalese. It wasn't even long. Typed in black and white. Clause 1. We eat real food. Clause 2. When the air gets heavy, we speak. Clause 3. No disappearing acts. Clause 4. Neither of us is a savior. Termination. Either party may leave when fear speaks louder than love. Fine print. None. I snorted, unexpected and delighted. Clause 1 is very brave. I've been told I subsist on espresso and vengeance. You do. I read it again, then reached for the pen. My hand hovered. I have conditions. Of course you do. I wrote them in the margins. Clause 5. I am not your pawn or your project. I am my own. Clause 6. If you ever bind me with magic, I will bind your espresso machine with salt. Clause 7. Sundays are for noodles and terrible television. He leaned in, reading, and smiled in a way that made the room forget its corners. Accepted. I tapped the bottom of the page. Only one non-negotiable. No fine print. His gaze held mine. Only the writing we choose together. We signed. Not with blood. With names that felt like decisions. HR will hate this, I said. HR, he said, works for me. Miss Jin doesn't work for anyone. Correct, he said, and I laughed, because fear had finally loosened its teeth. Is this where you kiss me instead of stamping it? I asked, and my voice didn't even shake. Only if you're consenting, he said, gravity gentle. I'm choosing, I said, and closed the distance. If time wanted to stop then, I didn't blame it. The kiss tasted like something ordinary and astonishing. Coffee, Rain, the relief of telling the truth. His hand found the back of my neck and then hesitated, as if asking again. I pressed closer. Consent is a language, and I was fluent when I wanted to be. We broke apart when the clock remembered itself. I leaned my forehead against his chest and felt the unfamiliar steadiness of his heartbeat, like a storm that had decided to stay on the horizon. "I'm still not promising to behave," I said into his suit. "I'm not asking you to," he said into my hair. We took the back stairs down to the street, because elevators are for ghosts, and new lives demand legs. Outside, the sky was that reckless blue cities get after rain, as if the weather had apologized. My phone buzzed. A text from Yunhi, OMG. Check the news. Golden Boy cancelled. A link. Headlines. Investigations. People who had smiled beside Chae Min stepping 3 feet away and changing their stories. Daylight doing its job. I sent back a single heart. Then another. Dinner tonight? I need someone to judge a questionable takeout place. Only if you bring the demon, she wrote. He's an executive, I typed. He has a contract about noodles. Ray peered at my screen. Do I? You do, I said, and threaded my fingers through his. We walked toward the kind of evening that doesn't need magic to be miraculous. Plastic bowls sweating steam, a cracked neon sign buzzing like a lazy cicada, a corner table where strangers become a table's worth less strange. Inside, the TV played a talent show with the volume too low. We argued about scallions pro, extra chili also pro, and whether Sundays should be legally protected from emails absolutely. My boots crowded his polished shoes under the table and refused to apologize. He pretended to mind. I pretended to believe him. When the noodles arrived, he actually ate them. Clause 1 fulfilled. When my chest tightened out of nowhere, he waited until I named the fear, and then didn't try to fix it. Clause 2. Done. When his phone lit with a number that looked like a trap, he turned it face down and smiled at me. Instead, Clause 3 held. Clause 4 hummed, a quiet agreement that didn't need to be tested to be true. We left with leftovers and promises that aren't binding except when they are. On the walk back, our reflections kept up with us in the dark glass of closed shops. 2 figures side by side, a future choosing itself in small, stubborn increments. Back in my room that night, the mirror didn't ripple. Maybe it was tired. Maybe it understood. I pinned the contract to my wall above the old calendar, right next to the sticky note where I'd once written "Stop apologizing to everyone." I added a new one. Keep choosing. My phone buzzed again. A final text from Yunhi. Proud of you. Pawn to queen. Not a game, I said to the empty room, and smiled anyway. Outside, the city breathed. Inside, I slept like someone who had finally stepped off a bridge and onto a road she'd paved herself. In this life I choose, and then I choose again,